Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Carter and broadcasting to you live from Long Beach, California on a bright Sunday, steamy afternoon. This is another episode of Visionaries and Truth Tellers, where I gather people from all over the planet. Anybody that I meet that's on Twitter, that's on Facebook, anybody I meet who I feel is actually doing something for humanity, pushing us forward, forcing us to be better humans and be kinder to one another. My guest today is another person I found on Twitter who is this amazing educator. I'm gonna let him introduce himself. He is an educator and I'm assuming he's pretty young. You look really young. So you're not 30 yet, are you?
I'll be 31 this week.
Okay, all right, I knew I was close. Okay, so without further ado, Mr. Stephen, take it away. Give us your 30-second bio.
So good afternoon, everyone. Or good evening. It's 6 o'clock here in North Carolina, but I am Stephen Gupton. I am a public school educator in Durham Public Schools in North Carolina. I currently teach middle school health science at James E. Shepherd IB Magnet Middle School, where we are a predominantly Hispanic school on the rise. I work for an amazing educational leader who actually brought me back into the classroom this year because I was on my way out last year because of some microaggressions and different things like that. So I'm absolutely excited about being back in the classroom, having that fire reignited. So prior to that, I served as a paramedic. I still serve as a paramedic in my community on a part-time basis. So some nights and weekends I go out and I jump on the ambulance and work as a medic and serve my community in that capacity as well. Even with that, I serve as a high school track coach here in my community at a place that I worked at prior to transitioning to middle school. And the oldest of 3 and the child of an incarcerated father. So I make sure that I try to be the example I need to be for the kings and queens that I teach on a daily basis. So it's pretty, in a nutshell, everything you need to know about me, other than me being a member of the NCAE Educators of Color cohort, where we're working to build resilient educators and students through the state of North Carolina.
Okay, and what grades do you teach again?
So I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Whoa, those were some tough years.
Yeah, so for the last 3.5 years, I was teaching 9th through 12th at a high school, the high school that I actually graduated from in 2008. And then this year I transitioned to middle school, so 6th, 7th, and 8th. So a huge difference, right? Like not much of a difference between my 8th graders and 9th graders, but definitely a difference between 10th, 11th, and 12th, and 6th and 7th.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I've taught high school. I tried to do the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I said, oh no. I could do the babies. I could do the high schoolers. I could do the people that were my parents' age when I taught people when I was to re-enter the job market. But I don't know what was going on with those 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. I said, oh no. I think I did one day. And the principal was like, oh, they loved you. You were really great with me. You should come back. And I said, no, I can't do it. I just
yeah. So those are very difficult years for children. And thinking back on it, I think those were some of my most difficult years as well, because, in elementary school, I'm labeled, and I quote labeled, because I hate that term, but AIG, right? So I'm academically gifted in elementary school. And then when I transitioned to middle school, I am struggling just a little bit. But I think that's when I'm also old enough to understand my dad's incarceration and handling that as well as school. So those were some rough years for me. So I was finding groups to fit into and being a class clown, really, and just trying to have fun instead of focusing on school. So there's some difficult years there for students. And then especially in the middle of this pandemic. But it has been an absolute pleasure for me transition to middle. And I thought I would always love high school, but man, I have fallen in love with middle school since always.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wait till, I think everybody has to, I've had a lot of people tell me at different schools, because I worked at schools in Harlem, I worked at schools in the Bronx. I'm living here in California now, so I've worked in school, I've been in and out of schools here. And I've had people tell me, that there's a school, everybody has to find their niche, right? And you have to find like where you really click. And when I started working with high school students, at just like the first week, I feel like I've been doing it forever. and not in a bad way, but kind of like, oh, I can do this. This is totally doable. And so high school was like that for me, teaching high school. And even the people I work with now are between 16 and about 30. So they're in their high school age. Okay, let me ask you about what are you excited about now? What are you working on? Because I see all your tweets and your stuff that you're working on. I'm like, when does this guy sleep?
Well, I don't really know what sleep is, and I think that's the paramedic in me. My body's clock is pretty much non-existent at times, so I actually function a little bit better. Around between 1 and 6 a.m. That's normally when I do my best work, honestly. And like I said, I think that's because I'm so used to working nights for so many years prior to transitioning into a typical 8 to 5 position, if you will. But I'm really excited right now about building connections with students in this new community.
Mm-hmm.
So the school that I taught at prior to, I was only 3 minutes from work. So I still live in the same area. So I could literally ride my bike to work if I wanted to, if I chose to do that. Now I'm 50 minutes away from work. So a major difference. However, I'm an educator who truly believes that no matter where you live, no matter what you do, as long as you build relationships and you get to know the community that you serve, makes it just a little bit easier for you. You get to know students and families. So just last week on Wednesday, each Wednesday, let me go back. Each Wednesday we have a Wellness Wednesday. So we teach Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And then on Wednesdays we are off. So teachers can use that time to plan. They can use that time to make phone calls. But students use that time to work on wellness or to focus on wellness. So our guidance counselors or school counselors and student services will actually lead wellness activities and SEO activities on that Wednesday. So teachers don't really have a lot of connection with students or obligation, so to speak, on that Wednesday to teach. However, last Wednesday, a coworker and I actually did some home visits. It was very spontaneous. We were actually at our school building, which was very rare. We decided to go up that Wednesday, get some work done. And said, let's do some home visits. And she was like, why not? I have a list of kids that I really need to see. Really need to lay eyes on because I haven't seen them. They haven't checked in. We've been in school since August. I can't get in contact with parents. So I'm really excited about the fact that we've decided every Wednesday, we're going to work on our campus for a few hours and we're going to spend the rest of the day doing home visits. It was eye-opening for us because there are certain expectations that we have of students, like something as simple as, hey, can you go find a quiet place to work while we're online? I think sometimes we tend to forget that everybody doesn't have what we have. I have a quiet place here, to meet with you and to teach, but every child doesn't have a quiet place. So I'm actually excited about getting out to meet more of my students and their families. And I'm excited that they even let me into their lives on that level because not a single student or parent was upset that we decided to visit. Everybody was absolutely excited. So a lot of positive feedback from parents, the school and the district as well.
Wow. Okay. But yeah, that's really incredible. I was talking to a woman this morning. I'm in a collective, a film collective, and we're all working on documentaries. And one of my collective members is working on one about education, and she's trying to figure out what story to tell or which angle. And I talked to her a while today about using the angle of what it takes to connect with people in terms of, if you haven't, and what I was telling her, I said, well, if you haven't connected with your students, your young people before COVID, it's really hard to start a relationship this way, right? It's not impossible, but it's not the same as, okay, I have one with you and now we're to switch into a different mode, right? And so I was telling her, I said, that might be your angle. I said, you might want to reach out to some teachers that have, some that already had a relationship and some that are trying to build one with this new kind of obstacle in the way. And then right after I told her that I got off the phone, I was reading one of your tweets and I saw that you were doing that. I was like, see, I just talked about that.
Yeah. So it's not, so you're right. It's not impossible. Now it's a bit more difficult, but it's not impossible. But we're in this time now where a lot of people push for students to have cameras on. And it will be nice for me to be able to see every child. But, looking at it through an equity lens, I also understand why every child is not comfortable having cameras on. you have some students who may have a hole in the wall. You have some students who have some type of insect. You just don't know what kids are going through. And I'm not one that's going to force them to turn on the camera, because like I said, I think that's an inequitable request on my end. So it is difficult to build relationships, but I think just like you said, it's not impossible.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing, when you were saying that, I'm thinking about doing an experiment. I have a class that I teach. I was teaching it every Tuesday, but we're going to be starting this week. I'm going to be doing it Tuesdays and Wednesdays and co-teaching with my case manager. And one of the things I want to try, from what just listening to what you just said and having a conversation with my the ladies in my collective with me, one of the things I want to try is to take a couple of minutes and have everybody turn off the cameras and see what happens, just to see if we get it, just to see if people can stay engaged, just to see what happens, just as an experiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, I know, especially with us, when we first started, there's a whole lot of the turning your camera, turning your camera, turning your camera. And then actually I started talking to some young people who, who are on the camera off, turning it on, and we started talking to people about what was going on. And some of the stuff they were telling us, I was like, oh, that would make sense. That's why your camera is off, right? So trying to figure out, and I think it's a thing about, I still think it's a thing about relationships, right? And it's an issue of trust, because if you build that in with somebody, then you can kind of be a little more hands off with people. If the agreement is we're going to do this, I'm teaching or we're exchanging information, right? I'm not the sage on the stage, but we're exchanging information. If the agreement is we're moving towards something really great and we're all in this together, that's different than me trying to control everything by saying, oh, the camera has to be on, I have to be able to see you, right? And there's a time to do that. And there's a time, about a year ago, I was doing an experiment where I had this whole lesson plan that I was going to teach, and I got pulled out. Somebody came to me and they said, oh, we need you over here because we're doing this. And I had about 5 minutes to figure out, okay, well, I can't do this. So let me look around in my class with the folks that I have. Let me tell them what I need them to do. Let me make sure the class knows this is who you're coming to today. You're not coming to me because I'm not going to be around. If you have any questions, you need to go to this. So it was an exercise in me and having built some things with my young people so that I could say, I'm going to be gone for 2 or 3 hours. Here, you handle this. And it was hard. It was very hard not to have
Oh yeah.
I need to manage everything. And it's like, no, they say they want to be adults. And these people my folks are between like 18 and 30. I'm like, okay, you're an adult, so be an adult. So this is what adults do. Things change. Here, take this and run with it. And it turned out a whole lot better than I could have ever have planned. And then I realized I was like, oh, I don't have to manage the universe because other people that can step up, so it was good. So yeah, I'm gonna try that experiment. So if it doesn't work, I will be calling you, Stephen, and I'm gonna say, okay, I don't know. I'm like, oh no, hell no, turn them cameras on. I'm gonna try it. But I think it might work because last week I had a meditation teacher come in, and he was able to do an experiment. He was able to model what meditation looks like, what it's about, and they did it. And they closed their eyes. And they did it with the exception of one person. And I've had a couple of conversations with him about what was going on there. So I'm going to try it. So I can say, wait, if you get a call, just know.
It didn't work out. It didn't work out.
You're like, well, what are you doing?
Right. So I think you brought up a really good point. We talked about control, and I think sometimes I think we're programmed to think classroom management means control. And it absolutely doesn't, right? So if you walked into my traditional high school classroom, some people probably would have been like, what in the world is this? I had bean bags where kids were down on the floor reading. I had carpet in one corner because we had tile floors. I had carpet in one corner where maybe 2 or 3 kids are there working on a Chromebook. You might see kids stretched out on the table, but I can promise you one thing, they're engaged. So I think engagement is defined subjectively. I think most people agree with that. So I think it depends on what you see as engagement and what I see as engagement. And that means we have to have a conversation with students about what engagement means. So even with cameras off, I will say that students have been engaged. So I think you'll find, I think it'll be positive.
Okay. Yeah, I think, one of the things, and I think sometimes in life, if you're lucky, you will come across 1, 2, 3, or whatever of your missions, like why you're here on the planet for this go around, right? And sometimes things will happen. You kind of end up in a situation, right? And I think for me, like I think teaching is one of them. And I think myself, like everybody, we have more than one. But I think that's one of the things that I kind of, it's like, oh, okay, I should be doing this. It was just something that felt right about it when I started doing it. And I remember teaching a gifted class and trying to, or figuring out ways to say, okay, well, there's a group of, I think it was a group of 29-year-olds, right? And there were some of them there, even though it was the fourth grade, they could do sixth grade work. And there were some people who were still struggling, even though they were just gifted. So I was always adjusting each lesson or each project 3 or 4 different ways. And that way everybody was always working and doing stuff and working together and like coming back. So I was constantly like, putting them together, bringing them apart, doing that kind of thing. And I remember many people, I guess from the administrative side, and some teachers too would come in and they would hear all this noise. And the assumption is, and I always think it's a joke, I always think it's hysterical. The assumption is always if people are laughing or there's noise, that there's not any learning going on. Like just like people assume that if you're quiet, you walk past the room and it's quiet and everybody looks like they're working, that means they're learning. I'm just like, that's not what that means. So I think you have to really figure out, part of it is classroom management, part of it is the agreements that you set up from the very beginning. Part of it is the agreements and the relationships, that they change, they develop over the course of the year, but you set that up at the beginning with these, with I think, really high expectations, and you show people how to meet them repeatedly again, and you let people meet them, and you stay out of the way. So I think you're definitely on the right track by having people, like you said, beanbag chairs, and this one's in the corner, and some people would walk by and say, "What's going on in there?" They're learning. I mean, it's not going to look like what people think it should look like. That always got me, and I've been doing this 15 years. But maybe at some point we'll get it. Okay, so gotta go for next week. Turning off that camera Tuesday. I'm gonna see.
Right.
Well, I will try it Tuesday. If it doesn't work, we're not gonna do it Wednesday. How about that? We don't have to do that again. Like, oh, that didn't work. We're not doing it again. Okay. So, tell me a little bit about, because I like reading your tweets and I'm always on your feed reading about what you're doing and things. This is something I found very interesting. I think maybe a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned you went to one of your students' house and somebody was having something where they were making tacos or something. So how important is food in the whole, in the world of teaching?
Yeah, so it's very important, especially when you're teaching, students from different backgrounds and different cultures, right? So here I am, first year at this middle school, and I got to know about this student and the authentic Mexican food through just a simple get to know you activity. And it was a get to know you activity that they completed on their own. It wasn't one of those ones that we hate to do in staff meetings, right? It was one they did on their own. So, and in that she told me that her parents actually make authentic Mexican food or street Mexican food. I'm like, I love Mexican food. Just had Mexican last night, actually. So I'm like, well, maybe I can sneak by there to the restaurant or to the food truck and just kind of surprise her, because it's different. Okay, you see me on camera every day, and I don't necessarily see her on camera every day because I'm not forcing them to turn cameras on or asking repeatedly to turn cameras on. It'll be different if she sees me in person. So what I do, I pop up on a Saturday afternoon, and I'm like, hey, I need to place an order, and she's like, oh my God. That's my teacher. Like, what in the world? But and we had 30, 45 minutes just for an exchange. So we're able to talk. I was able to meet her family. Hey, what can I do for you? Is there anything that you need that you're not getting at this point? Let me know. So I think food, hey, anybody can connect over food. Right. I don't think I've ever heard anybody complaining about having a meeting or anything over food. If you feed them, they come. Right. Yeah. So if you feed them, they come. So at that point, they would feed me, I was coming. So, I was able to get there and meet with them and talk to family. So it was absolutely amazing. You talk about food. So in my high school classroom, hadn't had a chance to do this in middle school because we haven't been inside of our buildings teaching students. We're all 100% online, virtual at this point. But even in my classroom, I had an office and I kept the office loaded with food, any snacks and anything that they would really want, little cups of macaroni and cheese. All you had to do was add water to it, slap it in the microwave. I kept that because, you learn that in some of the places that we teach, not everybody has everything to eat at home. Well, home. So food is definitely something that is very important to me when it comes to educating children.
Okay, very good. I agree. Yeah, because I have grandkids. I've worked with young people. These folks are always hungry. Even my
They're
grand,
hungry.
every time they come on, like, because even my grandkids come on, they act like they get fed once a week. I'm like, I know you just ate because I saw you when I picked you up, you were eating. So you're not hungry.
Right.
But I know it's part of being young. Yeah, so that's great. Let me ask you a question or two about, then we can wrap up. A question or two about um, self-care. And then I want to ask you about what is your hope for while we're in the midst of this pandemic and your hopes afterwards. Before you go into self-care, let me ask you this. Let me share this with you. I was reading your feed today, and you said something about you're reading a book, and I think it was The Color of Law, and you were saying one of your tweets is something about shut the computer off, get off Twitter, and I said, and I shut my computer off, and I got off, and I took a nap. You know,
Mm-hmm.
right in the middle, right at 1:30. I was like, I've had enough. You know, I took a nap. So tell me, so you did inspire me to do that. So tell me about self-care. So let's start there.
So I am I'm a runner by nature, right? So maybe a track coach, things like that, especially coaching high school kids, they think they can somehow school me, so to speak, or um, they can sprint a little bit faster than me. So I normally wait until about mid-season after I'm conditioned to jump out there and show them that coach still has it. So in order for me to do that every year, I have to stay in shape every morning. So self-care for me is getting up early before my day starts and getting a nice jog in. And then in the evenings, jumping on my bike and riding around the neighborhood or up and down some of these country roads that I live on, and just stepping away from everything else because I work all the time. Like, I'm teaching during the day. If the EMS agency is short-staffed, I'm jumping on an ambulance. If my ER is short-staffed, I'm going to work in the ER. Those are 2 part-time jobs I hold outside of teaching. So I'm always busy. So it's important that I find something for me. And most of the time, that is normally what I do. I like to jog. I come from a family of racers, drag racers. So Thursday nights and sometimes Friday nights, we actually travel to the drag strip and as a family, and everybody races. My brother is the one that's leading the charge right now and doing all that stuff. It's dangerous, but it's fun. It's just something that we've been around our entire lives. So that kind of takes us away from everything else.
Okay. All right. Got it. Got it.
Oh, and you saw me. I think I tweeted this morning. I was tweeting about the color of law this morning. I was actually sitting in the nail shop getting these dogs worked on. So that was part of self-care as well.
That's kind of what it looked like. I don't want to put you on
blast. Nobody wants a man. Nobody wants a man to walk across and pick up the carpet when he walks through the house. We keep these dogs.
I was looking at that and I could see just enough of the cover, and I clicked on it. I said, I think I know. I said, that looks kind of familiar because I haven't been to mine. Because at mine, I used to go to these ladies up the street from me, and when everything shut down, both sides of the street, I had to go to my site one day, one Monday or one Thursday, and they were the only one open. And I said, I said, that doesn't sound right. I said, everybody else on both sides, I said, we're gonna leave them alone. So then they shut down, and then here in California, a lot of the places opened back up. And I'm trying to decide. I'm like, do I risk it? Because I used to, where I go, they do everything. They cut your hair, they do manicures, they do pedicures, and they're fast and cheap. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, that will be the first stop. When all this goes away.
Right.
Because like you said, that you don't want to take off your shoes and scare anybody. So it's kind of
you don't.
We don't want that. So good. Somebody who takes care of themselves. Very good. What is your hope for us and your hope for humanity during COVID and post-COVID?
It's the same during and after. I want adults to be role models. These kids are looking up to us. It's not just the kids that we teach, but it's kids that live beside you. It's kids that walk through the building where you teach. Those are your community. The kids that are working in Subway, McDonald's, or whatever. We need to be role models. We have enough going on right now in the media. We have enough media organizations that are painting particularly Black males and women as something that we are not. And we're used to that. But the biggest thing about this is that we're better than that as well.
Mm-hmm.
We know what's coming at us. We just have to know how to handle it. And we just have to take the high road every single time. A couple of weeks ago, there was an issue on social media that I had to ignore and take the high road. All because I know my students, current students and former students follow me, as well as their parents, folks from the community, county commissioners, school board members, superintendents. Sometimes it's just step back.
Mm-hmm.
I have this little thing that my friend and I, we always say, if we get we write it out. Like if you get an email from somebody that you just want to fire back, type that email and sit on it for a few days. If you don't feel the same way you did several days after you typed it, don't worry about it. It's not that important, right? And if you do find a way to address it better than what you typed in that email, because it's probably going to get you fired or terminated. But the thing for now and after is that we, as grown folks, we have to be the role model for these children, If we don't, who will?
Okay. All right. Well, that's something to chew on. Okay. So tell everybody where they can find you.
So you can find me on Twitter at Gupton Teaches. That is GUPTONTEACHES. So Gupton Teaches. You can find me on Twitter. There will be times where you may look for me and I'm gone for like maybe 2-3 weeks or a month. It's part of self-care. Sometimes I'll deactivate my account. I'm gone for, I think if you stay gone over 30 days, Twitter deletes your account. So I set a reminder to go back in on like day 29 and reactivate. But there will be times I will step away. So don't think I'm gone. I just deactivate, step away from social media and focus on myself and family and these nephews of mine that eat up my entire house.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that is plenty to leave to wrap up on a Sunday. I'm going to let you get rest or wait for your calls, whatever it is you do on Sunday. I'm going to try this big experiment. I'm not joking. If it doesn't work, I will be reaching out.
Yeah, give me a call. I'm interested to see how.
If it does work, I'm going to reach
out.
out. But if it does work, I'm going to reach out and say, "Oh my God, we talked about this. I tried it." Or either way, or you'll be getting emails saying, "My God, this was a total disaster." But either way, I learned something. You learn something, right? You try something like, okay, that didn't work, and then I can always say, I can stop in the middle of it and say, let's go back and do something different. So thank you very much for your patience. We had some technical issues on this side of the planet, but we got it together. I'd like to do this again, a longer chat with you at a later date.
Oh,
I want to encourage you to keep going. I think the work that you do, I think the work that all instructors do, all teachers do is exceptional. To me, teaching and acting are the most noble professions, which is why for a long time I didn't want to teach, because it was like, I'm not, that's like next to God, so, but I think it is. And I think it's a super important job. At some point, I want to connect you with some other teachers that I've met, the same medium on Twitter, who are doing incredible stuff. One's in Boston, one's in, where is she? She's here in California, Northern California, and they're all doing this really, really incredible work. So be on the lookout for that. We connected all of you together some kind of way, just as a support network, and just to say, hey, you're not alone. Thank you very much for your time. You hear from me this week.
Okay. I'll be looking forward to it.
Take care of yourself. Thank you.
All right, you as well.